Waiting for engineering, she went upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Make sure that.
Very good. (10:01), we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could start with a roll call, please. After that.
Information on participating in this meeting and providing public
Comment, including remotely by Zoom, is available on the meeting agenda online at isearchmonterey.org. Remote commenters will be muted until it is your turn to speak, and a timer will be shown on the screen. If you're connected on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Thank you. Roll call. Patrick Aldinger,
I'm here.
Justin Chang,
Here.
Carol Turbagian,
Here.
Rick Hoyer,
Here.
Payam Ostavar.
Present. All right, thank you very much. At this point, we'll go to the consent agenda consisting of one item, approval of our minutes from January 7th. Unless there are any questions, I'd be looking for a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Move to approve.
Do we get a second? I am, thank you. Any discussion? Do we need a roll call vote on that?
Patrick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Turbagian,
Yes.
Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Payam Ostavar.
Yes. All right, thank you for that. At this point, we'll go to general public comments. This would be for any comments or questions from the public that fall under the purview of the Measure P&S Oversight Committee, but are not on today's agenda. I see no one in chambers here. Do we have anyone online with public comment?
No public comment.
All right, moving on to item number 2 on the agenda, review unaudited expenditures from July 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. You, Rafaela?
Good morning. Okay, so let's start with our expenditures. I'm going to go from the summary page and then, can you hear me?
Barely, yeah.
How about now?
Little better.
Okay. So on the summary page, we'll start with the expenditures. So for storm drains, we have expenditures for this through March 31st, 2025. We have 536,104. Description of that, we have total vendors 425,811 with labor cost of 27,389 to get to the 453. And then for sidewalks, we have 280,826. Pavements is 2,955,755. ADA is 1.2. 1,266,185 for total expenditures of 5,038,869. For the total year-over-year comparison, the same time this compared to March 31st, 2024, we have our tax revenue at $7,128,896, a change of increase of $996,245 over the prior year, 16% increase. Interest, $345,083, which is a decrease of $47,853. And so our expenditures in total from last year.
Yay.
That's better.
Yay.
Okay, that was too close. Okay, so for the expenditures from last year to this year, for storm drains, there was a decrease of 736,000, 58%. Sidewalks decreased 1.196, 81%. Pavement, 921,945, 24%, and ADA was increased by 800,254, so an increase of 172%. So if we go through the details, and I'm just doing the totals for the details for sidewalks, it is 270,758 and 97 cents. Our labor, $10,066.95 for a total 280,825 and 92 cents. For pavements, we had a total of $2,699,750 and 69 cents, with our labor costs $255,453 and 83 cents, for the total of $2.9 million. And then for ADA, contractors, $1,095,403 and 20 cents. And then the labor cost is 75,000. The labor cost is 170,781 and 91 cents, for a total cost of 1,266,185.11. And then we have the last one. I'm not quite sure if this is in the right place, but we have for the Measure P tunnel maintenance and repair. It's also pavement. So I think this actually should be moved to the pavement part. It's labor cost of 550 and 20 cents. And storm drain, last one, $77,920, and labor costs $4,982.39. Total costs for storm drains $82,902.39. Those are the details for the projects.
All right. Thank you, Rafaela. Do we have, I know I have a couple questions on the detail expenditures. Anyone else on the committee have any questions before I start that? Go ahead, Justin.
Sure. Hey, Andrew, I was wondering, on this is a general question. On the descriptions, we have these AG 10455 sort of descriptors. Do you guys take pictures of the work, like as it goes at any time, or?
Yes, we have inspectors that are out there who inspect the job sites. So they have pictures of before, after, and during construction usually.
Perfect. I know sometimes that we go walk around and we see the great work that's happening, sort of like on Del Monte Beach and over by the sports center. And then just wondering for historical record. So that's all internal. You guys have that?
For every project, we usually have an inspector out there that's documenting photos.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rick.
gotta do some quick math in my head, and my head doesn't work as fast as it used to. So if we were to add the 82,000 in the storm drain pump station to the 453,201 under the other storm drain section, that is going to equal 536,104.
I don't have my calculator, but yes.
Okay. And we had that whole discussion last meeting about why those are being shown and broken out to us. And we'd said the measure didn't have those as separate things, but I see you're totaling in the one. So you know what, we really should be seeing it as one thing. Those are not part of what the broken out separately. It's not part of what the bond in what language said.
If I remember correctly, that was basically an accounting procedure for the city. Is that right? Or did I misremember that?
I wasn't here the last meeting, but when I'm looking at these details, I'm looking at, if you see measures P storm drains on the first one, and it has those numbers 33. See, it's the funding, project number.
Mhm.
And if you look at the last one on the last page, it has CIP. It's a different project number,
Which
or funding of where it's
To
coming.
me means it's not part of what the bond aspect was, so therefore. I mean, it's, I understand internally why you want to be accounting things differently, but the bond had 4 buckets, period. And we have 6 buckets now again. Granted, the totals now are fine on the first summary, but
But you would like to see it on one bucket.
the measure was sidewalks. It wasn't sidewalks for the tunnel. It wasn't sidewalks for different things. It was sidewalks.
I understand. It's just the way my staff puts the paperwork together. It's really not a big deal. I can actually have them incorporate it into
That
the
would be
same.
great, because then it's consistent with what we're showing the public. We're not having to go, well, but that number doesn't match what's
Right.
shown here in the detail. Well, because it's this over here, which
Okay.
Yeah, I think what Rick is saying, and I agree, it gives us a place to defend what we're doing here,
Understand?
and to make sure that it's consistent with the language of the ordinance.
Well, yeah, because otherwise, as you said, is it part of the measure or is it not? Because if it is not, it needs to be removed and expenditures put somewhere else in the.
And that, that question, that's why we're here, to
Yeah,
answer that
right.
question.
and case in point is, okay, yes, I understand how a pump station is part of the entire storm drain system. But I also remember when I went to the public selling this, everything that was being shown is what people think of the storm drains of, all the rotting pipes underneath the streets and all the rest. So there's a bit of a disconnect over what the public thought they were getting and what we're getting here. Totally understand why. Without that, the whole system isn't going to work, and it makes total sense. But when you break it out separate, all you do is highlight that. And
Understood. We
So,
will
yeah.
make sure that this,
Yeah, I think, the request is if we can see that all under the same bucket, then that, again, that just helps us as far as communication.
Okay.
Thank you. Fine.
Related question or sort of comment, and it's a bit procedural, which is maybe kind of bigger picture procedural. I think we asked at a previous one to have more specific kind of action items and things like that in our minutes. And I don't know that made it in it last time, even though I seconded the, that I think that just helps. It's quarterly. It's hard for staff to remember these requests and things like that. So maybe just emphasize again that we put these requests and action items into those minutes.
Yeah,
it was kind of bare, the agenda that we approved earlier this meeting.
it?
I
Yeah.
mean, it didn't even have this discussion that we're having right now. Wasn't
the
even
minutes.
there.
Yeah. That,
We had-
I agree.
Yeah.
That would be helpful, I think, for staff and certainly for some of the committee members as well.
To just, to remember and feel
Yeah.
like we're being heard.
Is that an undue burden? Can we? Like I said, it just seemed like, that was pretty much missing from the minutes. And so, and it was an important part of the discussion, I think.
I will have to review with the city clerk's office to see
Okay.
if we are able to change our way of doing the minutes, because that's how we do our minutes now, is what has been approved.
Okay.
So it would have to go through the city clerk's office to
Okay.
see if that's an option.
Is that something you can get back to us before or by next meeting on what the options are for addressing that?
So I'll talk with the city clerk's office after this meeting, and I can let you guys know via email.
Okay.
Seems fair.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because we did a whole lot of work that doesn't appear on this agenda, the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there was, we got a report, we voted. We got a report, we voted. We didn't ask any questions.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
think, just I'm remembering, I think last time we were told that it was, I think the previous board or that voted to change it to the simplified or something. I thought I was remembering that. You're not. Okay. So, but whatever that was and whatever the process is, we're here for it. Just,
Well, at least not a meeting I was at. Now, whether these guys
That's
snuck
possible,
something
yeah.
in a meeting when I wasn't here, I don't know.
We do what we can, Rick.
I know.
And to your point, we do have, in the minutes, we do have that we talked more about the marina paving project, which we'll do again this morning in just a moment. All right. So I do have a couple questions on the detail list for this agenda item, and starting with storm drains. On the toward the top of the page, Protect Grant APPL, that application. I just, if I can get a better description of what that is.
Sure. So that is the Pump Station 11 project. That project, we pursued grant fundings through, I forget what the Protect Grant stands for, but the federal government has money floating around for certain types of projects. And we felt that the pump station was a good candidate for the Protect program.
And so that fee, that $5,900, $6,000 that was spent, is that city staff time to prepare the grant request, or is it an application fee?
No, it's not an application fee. We have consultants who support us in the design process. And so they were developing the conceptual plans to support the grant application.
Okay. Okay, and that money is earmarked specifically for that storm drain project then?
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
specifically for the Pump
Okay.
Station 11.
Very good. And then under sidewalks, school sidewalk repair. Is that, so the question there for me is, are these sidewalks school property, on school property, or they city?
I believe we had the work order within 500 feet of schools. Precision concrete cutting. You may have noticed these guys around town, they have a diamond blade and they slice up the uplifts. And so this work order was specifically for areas around school where we thought we had higher volumes of pedestrian traffic. So it wasn't in the school property, it was the sidewalks around it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to pavement. Toward the top of the list, quarter of the way down, pavement capital improvement for $14,000. Can you describe that project?
Pavement capital improvement.
Kimberly Horn.
Yeah, Kimley Horn.
I'd have to check that work order specifically. I don't, based on the description, I don't have enough context, so I'd have to follow up with you guys on that one. I can shoot an email out as soon as I'm able to review the PO.
That would be great. And it goes back, and again, my apologies if I'm not remembering correctly. To me, this is a question of street repair versus capital improvements. And so, which I still question whether, a capital improvement is part of PNS. And maybe that's on me to check the language and make sure I'm comfortable with that. And if I find it, that's great. If I don't, then we'll probably want to have some further discussion about it.
And there's more than just the one. There's like 3 or 4 entries for it.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Okay,
suspect I know what it is, but I don't want to guess and be wrong. So
sure.
I can follow up. I think I
Yeah.
know what that is.
Thank you.
That'd be great. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Next, on same page, oh yeah, just another entry for that same one. On the next page under pavement, just a quick description of the CW RSR project phase 4.
Citywide RSR is road surface repair phase 4. That was a project we did last year. I think you may have recall we had Carmageddon on Lighthouse. So phase 4,
Oh, yeah.
Lighthouse and some Moonrose and some of the other major arterials.
Okay. And finally, last entry under pavement, marina parking lot improvements. What can you describe those
So this one is,
improvements to a parking lot?
yeah, that's the Marina Lot project that's been discussed at multiple meetings in the past. We still have final payments that are still going out to the contractor retention, we withhold 5% on all contracts for construction work until the project's deemed complete. So this one, we had been waiting on an invoice, a retention invoice for months. The contractor never submitted it. We ultimately ended up preparing an invoice on their behalf for what we feel they're due. And so we processed that payment recently. There's still some disputes, so there still might be some lingering payments coming up.
But this is the road through the parking,
Yeah,
not the parking.
the project name is the Marina Lot Improvements Project, CIP.
The new road. through
The new road. through
But
the
it
parking.
included components of Figueroa, Washington, the exit lanes. So there is some public right of way and some roads that it wasn't just the parking lot, but that's the title of the project.
Okay.
So in fact, we're talking about the street, not the parking lot.
Yeah, so any,
A street that happens to be in a parking lot.
correct. So any of the payments under, Measure PS pavement for the Marina Lot project would either be Washington, Figueroa, or the exit lanes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
I've got-
Appreciate it. Go ahead, Rick.
I've got one question. It's not a project specific, but I noticed it when we were doing the summary. We went from same time period, 1.4 million in sidewalks fiscal 23-24 down to 280,000. And that 1.4 million is more than double any of the previous years. Do you remember what were the major projects we did on sidewalks that accounted for that much money?
Yeah, we had two pretty big sidewalk projects, phase 6 and 7. I think they were in downtown. Let's see, I'm trying to find the right line item. I'm sorry, year over year at the bottom.
It's really just the magnitude difference in shift is had to have been something really big from.
Yeah, sidewalk 6 and 7, I think we're going on that year. So we did citywide sidewalk repair, and that included two pretty substantial work orders for downtown. I can get you the full project
But
description.
that wasn't changing the nature of the sidewalks.
No, that was sidewalk repairs. So city trees, damaged sidewalk.
We actually just did a lot of them compared to all the other years.
Yeah, we had,
Because more was done on that year than the 3 years combined.
and we were going to be light on the citywide sidewalks in the
Okay.
next year.
Yeah,
So I don't have another project in the hopper that's ready to go out.
Oh, I think we're pretty close to being done with all trip hazards after
Mm.
how many years?
We have a
Although
pretty,
they.
Those
have a-
trees keep growing. I don't.
yeah, those trees keep growing. In fact, we got a complaint for a sidewalk that we installed 5 years ago where all of a sudden the slopes are no longer compliant.
To be like Vegas and put in all fake trees.
And I see too, Rick, I don't, how much this factors in, but, looking at today's report, there's a big focus on, a lot of ADA work happening.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it
Just the
just
shifting of
struck me when
focus,
you
yeah.
were doing the summary of the magnitude difference was the thing.
Yeah, true. All right. Anything else on this agenda item?
I have just one quick thought.
Go ahead,
Circling
Justin.
back to what Payam brought up. I'm sorry, could you remind me of your name?
My name is Kaylin.
Kaylin. Hey, Kaylin, if we took, let's say, the YouTube transcript and just threw that into, like, say, ChatGPT or Gemini and asked it to create minutes, I mean, I wonder if that would work. So in terms of saving staff time.
We could eliminate a city position by doing that
I
and
didn't
save
say
everyone
that.
money.
Watch it. Buster.
Yeah,
That might get you a thing.
well, I think our discussion wasn't, it was just a little more detailed, mostly
Yeah,
action,
I mean,
action items.
We talked about a whole lot more
Yeah.
things than what the minutes show. It's-
That actually just reminded me, apologies. I did see in the minutes agendize a conversation about a letter to council, but I don't see it in the agenda. Is that
Okay.
an issue?
Oh,
Yeah, that was,
Yes.
yes, I remember that
was-
now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sending a letter to the city, yeah. I wasn't here, but I see it.
You're right, right. And, it was never decided at that point who was going to draft this
We were
letter.
going to vote on if we were going to do it.
Yeah, okay,
And
right,
we
okay.
needed
Yeah, we had to
All right.
agendize it to discuss whether we were going to do it or not.
So can we formally request that go on, and get a little bit out of order on the agenda here, but
Yeah,
if we can get that added to next meeting's agenda to a vote on whether we draft and submit that letter or not.
And what, I apologize, I wasn't at that meeting then. If we're talking, what was the letter?
I'm going to have Rick go ahead. It was,
It was his idea.
Well,
I
I
just
mean,
echoed to have it. brought
it is,
by it.
and I mean, and I'm discovering, I'm a bit of a slightly bigger picture kind of person. And it's actually with most of these measures, it seems that before we thrust a bunch of money into massive projects, we should verify that and have funding to do so. Staff should have funding to do so. I remember you saying that requires some time and
It was the standards, whether or
it was
not
standards,
they-
whether
should be
we
updated.
think the standards, whether staff thinks the standards have been reviewed so that they are the latest and greatest for various things. I think the main one that came up for me was the drains. Just that in neighborhood association meetings, people brought up concerns with raccoons, and there's ways to do that.
I don't want to interrupt Pine, but there is more discussion to have on this. And so what I'm going to suggest at this point anyway, is we continue with this agenda item. And then let's
trying to
I know.
No problem.
Let's have that, move that discussion to after item 4 can be part of committee member comments, and let's make sure that we know what we're asking for next meeting's agenda. But back to item 2. Unless there are any more questions or comments on item 2, be looking for a motion to accept the unaudited expenditures from July 1st, 24 through March 31st, 2025.
So moved.
To accept the report. I'll
Oh,
second.
Second, all right.
Okay, we got multiple motions and
Whatever you guys
seconds.
wanna do.
Take your
Let's
pick
do seconds.
between Justin and Carol. Any questions or discussion? A vote, please.
Okay, Patrick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Turbagian.
Yes.
Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Payam Ostavar.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. Agenda item 3, review unaudited periodic report from July 1st, 24 through March 31st, 25. Rafaela.
Okay, let's go with the highlights here. Okay, so our PCI is now at 80. From inception, from the plan through March 31st, we have total revenue, including interest, of 102.3 million. Our total expenditures, 82.63 million, and our fund balance is at 19.74 million. For the period from July 1, 2024 through March 31st, the revenues are 7.4 million, expenditures at 5 million, and the change in fund balance is an increase of 2.4 million. And we still have projects that are continuing to go on. We've already talked about the comparison year over year this time and the total numbers. Any questions?
Thank you, Rafaela. Any questions or comments from the committee?
I move we accept the report.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? A vote, please.
Patrick Aldinger,
Yes.
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Turbagian,
Yes.
Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Payam Ostavar.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item 4, review street rehabilitation and reconstruction reports for 2025.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Thank you. So you have in your packet the same exhibits that you have each meeting. They have been updated. You have the full list of streets. You should have also received the Excel version. I don't know if there's been much change since the last meeting. We do have upcoming projects. In fact, some are actually active. So the road rehab 5, which is Hawthorne Street, is actually actively under construction. And road surface repairs 24-25 is just kicking off. You might actually see some markings if you drive down David for dig out locations. So that should be getting started too. I've also received word that PG also has a project plan on David. So if you're on the PG side, that's not us, but that could be getting started anytime soon too. So
We're shaming them into doing it.
sorry.
If we're doing it on our side, they're shaming them into doing it on theirs.
We coordinate. So maybe
I'm kidding.
they saw we had one coming and they just got ahead of it. But So that's it. If you have any questions with the list or the upcoming projects, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the committee?
No questions. I mean, with PCI where it is, it looks like things are going very well. So
Do you agree with that number, Carol?
What, the
The
PCI?
PCI number?
I told you, I've been driving where I've been driving now. I see a lot of streets and I was pleased to see Aguajito at Sylvan and Mulholland. It's a pit up there. I mean, and actually in New Monterey Hawthorne now that they're working on, where they're working on Hawthorne in New Monterey, it says pavement rehabilitation, but there's a lot of curb ramps and stuff over there and
Yeah, so Title
driving there
II
too.
Code of Federal Regulations, if we're changing line and grade on a street, which would include like a rehab project, we're required to do the ADA ramps at that time. And so the contractors, they typically sequence the work where they'll do the ramps first and then phase in the road rehab. So that's what you're seeing is the contractor starting on the ramps and then they'll do the road rehab after that. But the ramps are triggered as a condition of these rehabilitation projects.
So the ramp though is not part of sidewalks, that's part of street pavement.
So because we're repairing the street, it's tracked under the street repair. We do account for our expenses for ADA improvements. So we track those separately, but because it's part of the road rehab project, it's still paid for out of the pavement.
Rick, there are 4 or 5 street segments that have a PCI of 0.
Yeah.
I would imagine you couldn't even, there isn't a street there if it's 0, or is it just you don't have it indicated yet?
No, those individual street segments still need to be updated. I know every meeting they're there.
And there are a couple that are also like 6 to 8. Are those scheduled to have work done on them?
No, I don't know off the top of my head. We used a Street Saver modeling tool to forecast the next 5 years of projects. And so it'll indicate the best use of the money. And so it's not necessarily what streets are at the lowest number. It's how do you maximize your return on investment. So oftentimes that's keeping pavement that's in fair condition from falling down the maintenance curve.
A 6 isn't.
I know.
Well,
Now the 6, I believe, is the section in Cannery Row, which I think is a concrete street, which speaks a lot to it itself. And then there was another one that was a 3 or 4.
no, that's the one,
Oh,
that's the one
Aguajito.
where seriously at Aguajito,
Okay.
Sylvan, Mulholland, it will rattle the teeth out of your head when I'm driving people on it, but it's not a 3. I mean, it not good.
Yeah.
But that was specifically going around in there in Deer Flats and
Yeah.
stuff back there that is not good. And stuff in New Monterey that's not good as well.
Mhm.
So procedurally, as this, the street index, is that addressed only when a project is completed and we adjust the number on the streets that were involved in that project, which I'm sure we do. I guess the question is, how often do we go back and say this street hasn't been touched for 4 years or 8 years or whatever the number is? And do we readjust that number? How frequently does that happen? Is there a comprehensive adjustment to the PCI?
So we actually just recently did it. We hired a consultant who drove
Right.
all the streets and did a visual assessment. So they didn't go to the level of detail where they're taking cores and looking at the substructure, but it was just a visual assessment of all of our streets. And so they recently updated and calibrated this database. So the fact that there's a couple that are outliers tells me, there's no such thing as a perfect data set. And we probably need to go back and review these specific segments. We just haven't found the time. The model does get updated manually every time we complete a project. We tell it what treatment we did, and it'll adjust the score accordingly. And then it also kind of adjusts over time where you see, in the last 3 months, it went from an 81 to an 80. Just as time goes on, the model just continues to kind of tick downward. So I guess there's multiple things influencing it, but we do update it every time we finish a project. We overhaul it every so often. My goal is to do that on a 5-year basis, just to do the visual assessment, look at and at that point, run the modeling tool to tell us what street segments we're going to do in the next 5 years, and then try to implement that plan and then come back 5 years after that and redo a visual assessment, recalibrate the model, and then do our budgeting forecast.
Now, when we're saying our overall PCI, is that an average of all the PCIs on this thing, or is it take into account the length of the street segments?
I'll have to see how it averages that. I don't know off the top of my head.
If it's just a straight average, those zeros are gonna
Yeah, it'd be weighted
negatively
differently.
impact your number, but if it's the length that's different.
I'll dive into the details of the tool.
Curiosity.
I don't know if it's weighted by the
Yeah.
street length or width. So I can take a closer look and tell you how that calculation's made.
Yeah, because otherwise, yes, if the zeros are real short little stretches, it's not gonna do much good to fix them, but
Right, and if we
Otherwise,
see a
you-
6
you-
or an 8, but it's only a block long, maybe that block is a 22, but because it's only a block, it's adds the number 8.
If in the beginning of P, I think there was a street segment that was very small that was like dirt, wasn't it? It was like 0, but it was very, very small in New Monterey, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly from
Hmm.
10 years ago.
Okay, let's see, I think we still need to
some report.
accept this report. Any other questions or comments on this before we ask for a motion?
Very minor. I noticed it last time, just a misspelling on a street.
Oh.
Which I think, so I saw somebody write it down last time, but I don't know if that'll mess up your reports or searches at a different date, but
No, what street was it again?
Divisadero.
Divisadero.
Which street?
Divisadero.
Oh.
Thank
And
you.
I
Thanks.
recently learned that street is 100% in the city of Monterey. I thought that went right down the center line of the street, but we've been reviewing record
We
maps.
can't give it to PG.
City doesn't want it. I did
I
confirm.
don't want it. All right, be looking for a motion to accept this report, please.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Justin. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Patrick Aldinger,
Yes?
Justin Chang,
Yes.
Carol Turbagian.
Yes.
Rick Hoyer,
Aye.
Payam Ostavar.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, Kaylin. And so finally, committee member comments, and I want to go back to the letter that came up earlier and that we would perhaps want to get agendized for further action on. And so, yeah, this was a letter that was going to suggest that there be some engagement with the city by the public to at least discuss, if not advise, on standards being used for construction projects for a lot of the projects that fall under Measure P&S, as well as somewhat of an advisory role. And Pam, maybe I should just turn this over to you to make sure that I'm not mischaracterizing what the request was.
Well, and I think the reason for the vote is that I'm new, you all are educating, well, now I'm been on this for over a year now, but educating me on, and the topic was, is that our role? And in some ways it seemed like some of us thought, well, what other forum is there for that? Then if not us. And then I think others, we thought that we're very narrow in what we're reviewing and what those things are. And so in some ways, I don't want to be a burden to anybody, to staff. I mean, you all are already burdened with approaching us for this time. And so we're very thankful for that. So in some ways, it's just making sure I'm not overstepping the role in making this suggestion. But that it seemed like there was some agreement that some of these things are once in a lifetime. Right now, we're not going to, in our lifetime, we're hopefully not going to see new storm drains come up. And this is our chance to hear at least what I was hearing in neighborhood association meetings, some requests for raccoon-proof sort of storm drains and things like that. We discussed we just heard that some trees are maybe uplifting already or something like that. There are things you can do to reduce that risk that could be designed, but if they're not in our standards now, then we're going to just keep having these things occur. Again, maybe that's not, but it does feel like it's related to our role is to reduce the waste of this spending. And if we see that as a way to reduce that spending waste by hopefully doing it with an upgraded fashion, then maybe that's worth just, we're not making those decisions. We're trusting staff to do that. But I think as residents, we want to know that we are doing that. And that goes with any of these new measures. We're getting ready to upgrade all our schools and things like that too. And hopefully, if there's something that could be improved, we're not just putting it back the old way when there is a improved new way to do it.
Okay.
I think a big part of it too was, in the discussions we had with staff, was the reason for the letter is that was to request that the council consider undertaking a review of standards, and it's a budgetary item
Budget,
for
yeah.
staff to have the people to be able to do it. And that would be council's decision. But from our standpoint, it would make sense to have them at least bring to their attention that there should be a look at reviewing standards across the board and making sure they're all correct.
But a question, I agree that that should probably be the case, but is that under our purview is to be sure that the money that is being spent in conformance with the measure. And if that's the case, yeah, and I agree that that probably should be done, but is that for this committee, or is that for us individually to go to city council and say, as residents, we feel that
It
this
would
should
have
be?
more legs if it came from the committee.
Okay.
And to me, is it directly in our purview? No, it's indirectly, because we're trying to look at making sure the money is spent
Right.
right. And if the standards are old and all of a sudden now it's a project
Money
again
isn't
in
being
3
spent
years.
right.
I mean, totally no example of it, but I can see a nexus.
Yeah, I think
But it's definitely not us to ask staff to do it. That's for sure.
Correct.
right.
Right.
And I think I mostly agree with Carol on the purview of this committee. Not that it's a conceptually, I think it's a great idea. And I think that at some point, if it gets agendized with the city council, that it's something that the council decides, do we create a new committee that actually does
Mhm.
that is,
Right.
and on the school projects and other capital improvements and streets as well. If that is a,
I
something that, a committee that gets formed, or whether that's something that the council just requests that staff take care of, make sure that, do a review of
Yeah.
standards and make sure
To
we're
me,
doing the current and best practices.
To me, it's not us asking the council to give us the right to do it.
Right.
It's raising the question to them, saying it really should be reviewed, but it can't be done with existing staff time and things right now. It would be a budgetary item. Consider it, and in your infinite wisdom, you'll get to make the decision.
Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And, one step further on that for me, though, that, is it under the authority and purview of this committee to write that letter?
And we did discuss that a little bit last time, because staff was generous enough to bring a brief paragraph. I wish I brought it in this time. And I remember we discussed it a little bit, and it sounded rather broad in that scope. That did seem kind of fitting, but then we were going to discuss it.
Yeah. That all being said, I'm happy, to bring it to as an action item on next meeting's agenda.
Mhm.
Kaylin?
And then we can vote inside and the wording and.
Yeah, Kaylin.
Okay.
So I did put it on the minutes draft because that was something that you guys requested. The reason why it's not on this current agenda is because it's not directly related to Measure P&S Oversight Committee. You guys can write a letter on your own time, but you can't do it during committee time.
Okay. All right.
And that ruling came from.
Yeah. How did?
That's from the city code. It's just if you read the city code, it tells you what Measure P&S Oversight Committee can do and can't do. And that's what Carol Travagian was talking about directly. What you guys are actually overseeing is you see the money and how we earned it, how we spent it, what we did, and that's what the people voted on. If you want to go past that, you're going to have to do that on your own time. And you said, well, it would have more weight if it came from the committee. still can write that letter and say, hi, I am Rick Hoyer. I serve on the Measure P&S Oversight Committee. This is something that came to my attention during a committee meeting, and then present that to city council. It's just not during these committee hours. Can you guys use that to draft a letter, write a letter, and review it?
I'm not sure that sounds right. In terms of what the committee's authorities are. In terms of what the responsibilities are, that's generally what codes lay out. Like what's your authority in terms of oversight, but in terms of the actions that you take, you have much broader authority. So I'm just not sure where that's coming
Yeah,
from.
I've got an issue with that.
Yeah,
I
we
can
took a look
review
at
it more
as
with
to-
the city
We saw
clerk's
the codes
office.
last one.
Yeah, and it sounded to, we discussed it briefly,
And I'm not
but
necessarily disagreeing with, it didn't hit my ear right in terms of,
So
committee
to make sure that we appropriately and completely and comprehensively address this issue, can we request that council weigh in on our authority or purview? That can we have that discussion? Can we write that letter?
I'd like a determination from the city attorney, which would be.
But yeah,
which would be-
that's what I meant, city attorney, and I realized I used
I
council.
didn't see, if you were studying code last meeting when I wasn't here, sorry, that, could I get that sent to me
I think it was the last.
so that I can look
Send
at
it.
it?
I think it was in the last agenda packet.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I was a little busy last
Yeah.
quarter.
Yes,
If I may,
it is posted on the iSearch, the agenda packet from
Okay,
last
I'll
meeting.
look at it then, yeah.
if I may, and for the interest of wrapping up this part of the discussion, we will go ahead and put that on the agenda for discussion. I don't believe that it's actually part of your purview to do that. And quite honestly, it is council's decision if they want to do that, but as far as budgetary, seeing I'm in the middle of budget season and trying to wrap up, or tie together a deficit,
What I'm having a difficulty with is that it's very clear what we can and can't
Mhm.
do, and that's, we can't be telling you what projects to do. We can't be telling you the order of things. Was it spent correctly? But I'm having an issue with being told that if we discover that there's a major issue in how city is doing things, as a committee, we cannot raise that to the city council in form of a letter as a committee. It's not taking action on doing anything about it. It's raising from what we've discovered in our actions as committees doing it, and to be told that we can't do a letter to the city council raising the question.
So,
Understand.
yeah,
And that's where, that's the hair we're splitting, but it's
Yeah.
not taking action on anything. It's basically what I'm being told right now is as a committee, you can't raise an issue to the council that you see as it relates to how this whole process is going.
We can what they're saying is we can individually, but not as a committee.
Individual can do
Yeah.
anything, but it's,
Right.
the big difference than when you had a commission that's been specifically charged with looking after the funds are being spent correctly according to the issue. And to be honest, the impact of this, of having standards that are out of date, is a direct
Potential.
relationship to whether or not projects are going to be redone and be effective.
yeah, and
And it's not us making a determination on it. It's, hey, we've seen this question, council, it's in your court.
I
Go
can see
with it,
both sides of
or
it,
whatever.
and I think, there's also the possibility of a slippery slope when we
Right.
head that direction. And so if staff, if you all decide that that's something that can be put on next meeting's agenda for, as an action item for a vote, well, please do so. We'll handle it then. If it is determined, that is something we cannot do, I would request, some official,
City attorney ruling. on it
yeah,
is-
just
is
yes,
the appropriate
exactly.
form.
Saying here's the piece of the code that prohibits you from doing that. That would be helpful. Then we can stop worrying about it.
Yeah, because sending a letter is not taking action on anything.
Writing a letter is
It's
taking
information.
action, though. Yeah. Again, it depends on how you want to look at it. So if that's something we can do, is that a reasonable request?
yes,
If it turns out that, we can do the vote, great. Let's do that. If we can't, tell us why, and then we'll put it behind us.
we'll take care of it.
Thank you very much.
It would just get mad.
Yeah, thank you. I mean,
Yeah, no,
had that action,
yeah.
that letter, official notice been given to us 3 meetings ago,
Yeah.
we could have tabled all of these conversations. So let's get it. If it's available, that'd be great.
Yep, great. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else under committee member comments?
Yes, I think, I spoke to the city council 2 meetings ago and expressed the fact that this will sunset in 27, that it has to go, if we're going to consider it, it has to go on the ballot next year in 26. I offered that, and I think I've discussed it with a couple of different people, that offered to provide a tour for city council to see some of the street segments that I see on a weekly basis as I'm volunteer driving, to see where the need for continuing it. And the mayor, actually before the mayor, I was sitting in the back, the mayor came over and is like, we need to talk about this. We want to talk about this. And I said, good. So it's out there. I've offered it. I guess the ball is in their court. I can try and get a hold of them again. But I did make the comment. I said to Rick, I made the comment off the top of my head that Measure P started in 15 and right afterwards, because I said to the mayor, I asked the mayor at the time if he was trying to suck up to me because I was on the committee, that my street got slurry sealed close to right after, and it was in June 2015. And there is a lifespan of slurry seal that we need to consider too, that it's like, it's there, it's done, one and done, and it's not. But the mayor expressed interest in doing it. And apparently if we offer, we can be Brown Act compliant if it has to be offered to the public to go on that tour. If I can offer the right size vehicle for the city council to be able to go on it and have, I don't know how many people are that interested in doing that. That's lucky for us that I don't know that many people are interested in it, but I put it out there and put out there the fact that we are not finished, and we aren't, and it was somebody who had said it to me, compared it to painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you get to the end, on the one side, it's time to start over on the other side again. So it's out there. I will pursue. I know that it's budget season. There are other things going on, but I wanted to make sure we get it out there earlier rather than later.
Yeah, I think that's hugely valuable, because I've heard too, discussions about, how do we pay for this? How do we pay for that? And can we modify this particular measure to help accomplish some of those things? And the last thing any of us wants to have happen is forsake the streets and let them just deteriorate again. To throw the money at some other project. And so I think it's really good that council has the, firsthand information and can do that.
And
So
I did say
I'll certainly follow up with you.
Yeah,
with,
please.
with,
That was at the meeting where they went across the street to have the tour over there. And I think, again, off the top of my head, it was $176 million. And my comment was, yes, it's a project that needs to be done, but if it's bringing 10 or 11 million a year, and the streets could start to, and the sidewalk stormwater start to deteriorate again, that is not a drop in the bucket to fix. We need to figure out other ways of funding that stuff. And tapping off a couple $1 million, because I've heard it's like, oh, well, let's leave 6 million for whatever the street storm drain sidewalks, and we'll tap. But it would make them feel like they've done something. Well, we got 3 million, but what is that going to do for 176 million? And then the other fire stations and everything that are probably $400 million. And so again, I made that comment, and I firmly believe that the amount of money that this brings in, we need to continue doing it at the level it's at. So
Justin.
Just a brief statement. In terms of the great work by staff and our contractors, as I've watched this over the years, this is a great funding model for infrastructure. I think so. That's something to keep in mind, potentially plussed up for the future. So,
Yeah.
And like, Carol, let's, I'm happy to follow up with
Good,
you
thank
on
you.
that.
Yep.
Anything else on committee member comment?
Yeah,
Rick.
I'll chime in on this. I think it is as it's being looked at for renewal, we need to take a hard look at how much storm drains do we really have left that needs to be in it? How much sidewalks do we really have left? Because from my personal standpoint, I wanted this to be just streets and ADA because you got to do that at the time when you're doing the streets. Sidewalks got added in at the council meeting the last day when they were doing it because one council member had a hot button for one sidewalks. Storm drains were there pretty much from the beginning, but a lot of it was focused on all the deteriorating storm drains. Well, we spent a lot of money doing it. So before we just automatically do the same exact formula, I say, let's look at how much do you really need for those.
Yeah, we see things that haven't, streets that haven't been touched yet.
I think this has been successful because it was very focused. It was very time limited, and you proved to the public that work could be done, and the public came through and redid it twice now.
Twice, yeah.
I think the second this is just putting it out there in the ether to the public, council members and others who are going to be discussing it. Second you diverge from that, the likelihood of it getting passed drops dramatically.
One thing though, when you were
That's
just said
my
something,
opinion, but yeah.
something that could be added in that we've discussed is repairing some of the signaling problems as
The lights don't work.
that is there. Yes. Is there something else that could be?
Mhm.
And some of the signaling stuff specifically, as soon as you said that, I'm like, wait a minute, we were talking about signaling as well,
Mhm.
potentially. But again, we have a little bit of time. We need to start working on it, but I think it's something that should remain intact as for a specific measure.
Yeah,
So-
it like I say, it'd be a shame to
Yeah. Yeah.
let it deteriorate. Okay. With that, anything else? Anyone?
Very, very briefly, I just say again, I hope I haven't felt like I'm stepping on toes. I'm very much trying to just learn about the process and what we're doing. I'm very sincere and intent in trying to be helpful in this process. And honestly, it sounds like some of the conversations we were just having very similar. Like, what about the lights? What about the redoing of the slurry seal? And maybe those get tabled to topics of when this gets raised again, those things get added in there as part of it. That might be a better forum than a letter, for instance, to council. But if we have those conversations anyway, are we allowed to have those conversations and make recommendations for adding things to the next version of this?
I can speak to that.
I guess not, according to what we heard today.
So
There-
I'm not,
There is a
Oh.
committee, there is a committee that was before P and before S. There was a committee formed that formed what was going to be in the ballot measure. The initial P was, what are we going to do? We're going to retire the side fund. We're going to do, we would like to do a sales tax measure. What are we going to do with it? And we honed in on that. Then when we honed the second time going to S, the committee before the ballot measure was formed was determined that. So that will be, there's a structure that we follow, and that's where that can come up.
yeah, and if we look at, just looking at the final item here on the agenda committee member comments, this is fairly specific. Committee members may ask a question for clarification, make a brief announcement, or make a brief report on their activities. In addition, a committee member may provide a referral to staff or other resources for factual information. So it's fairly specific. It cites the code section, and yet again, it's open to some interpretation. And I think that referral to staff for factual information. Can we write this? Can we discuss and vote on writing a letter? For example, I think that falls under that. As far as, are we able to do that? If we are, great, then we can decide if that's what we want to do. And again, this fall under any variety of topics. And so there is some freedom here, but we've got to stay within the spirit of this oversight committee. To me is really important, and it's important that we adhere to making sure that we're focusing on the expenditures of these funds and that they are spent appropriately.
Just a information, because I'm not sure if all the committee understands it or knows it. One of the side benefit of these measures, and which could change should the amount be changed in the future, is I believe it was Measure X with TAMC when it was funded. There, part of that money goes as grants to cities for streets. It is based off of, however, there's a maintenance of effort requirement in it, so that you have to maintain the same level of funding that you were doing prior to that measure to keep getting those funds. Because the goal was not to have it be a bait and switch, basically. So in the future, if we were looking at changing it, all of a sudden it's not the same amount, it could have an impact on those funds as well.
Yeah, and that's,
And
again,
which
we'll
most people
follow
don't
up.
realize it's there. But by doing it, we also leveraged even more funds for streets from that.
Yeah, and we will follow up with staff
Yeah.
and council on that.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
Thank you, Liza and Andrew and staff and everybody else here for your
Yep.
time. Really appreciate it. And
Absolutely. Thanks for being here this morning. Thank you to staff. And I have 11 o'clock on the dot. We will go ahead and adjourn.